So here's our movie service. Do you see an issue in this implementation? Something repetitive. Do you see that? It's the calculation of this URL for a specific movie. All these concatenations, they just look so ugly. So it would be better if we extracted this logic into a separate function. So on the top, let's create a function, get movie URL. It takes a movie ID and returns API endpoint plus slash plus ID. Or we can use template literals in ES6 and change this to something a little bit more elegant. So we use backtick, add a placeholder that is $ and curly braces. In this placeholder, we pass an argument. So API endpoint. So what we have here will be replaced dynamically at runtime. We want to have the API endpoint, then a slash, and then the ID. So we add another placeholder and pass this ID here. Now note that here I'm not exporting this function because this function is purely used in this module. It's part of the implementation detail of this module. We don't want other modules to see this implementation detail. So remove export. Now let's use this new function. So here on line 15, let's replace this ugly expression with get movie URL, and we pass the movie ID here. But there is a tiny issue with our naming. Look, HTTP get, then get movie URL. It's kind of repetitive. We can rename this function using F2 to movie URL. That is better. Now one more time, in our save function, when sending the HTTP put request, let's replace this with movie URL. And here we pass movie._ID. And finally, when deleting a movie, let's replace this with movie URL and we pass movie ID. That is better. So we're done with this service. Now, nowhere else in our application, we're using these fake services. So it's time to delete them and clean up our code. Beautiful.